Recently, I made a video about how Minecraft added copper golems and chests, which is a great addition, but then they went and added copper armor and tools, and people were really upset about it. In my video, I debunked a lot of the criticism that the community was hurling at Mojang, and pointing out the hypocrisy of the community that asked for something, but then selfishly decided to throw a temper tantrum when it wasn't to their liking. I know we could be gamers and rage a bit, but sometimes I think the internet just needs to cool off a bit. Not everything needs to be treated like it's the end of the world.
So why are you making this video then? You seem to be talking about the same thing as the last vid. Are you trying to milk the cow for all it's worth?
No, of course not. Me? You mean me? No way. Okay, but in all seriousness, I didn't really expect that video to blow up like it did, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to say I didn't really put 100% of my effort into workshopping the concept of the video. I didn't think anyone was gonna watch it, so that's why. But it seems like some people might have been a bit confused about my arguments and what I said, so I'm making a new one to clarify that copper is still better than iron. But what do you think? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you disagree but still like copper? Maybe if you watch a little more, I might be able to change your opinion. Who knows? But before we get started, this little graph here tells me that only 0.8% of the people who watch my vids are also subbed to my channel. So make sure to hit that like button. Let's teach that algorithm who's really in charge here. Plus, you should subscribe because oh my gosh, I have so many ideas for vids that I am just itching to get started on. In preparation for making this video, and also to my own curiosity, I started a bunch of random worlds in Minecraft, just trying to see how fast I could get copper and how long I would feel comfortable using it. Some plays lasted about 30 minutes, others lasted about an hour. I mainly tried to use copper until I found iron, and then diamonds, and trying to get a full set of diamond armor, and at that point I was like, yeah, let's just start a new world. I did 12 worlds, and as I talk, a couple of the highlights of those worlds will play in the background. It was actually one of the first times I've ever successfully did a water bucket clutch. It is insanely terrifying to do those. At the end of the video, I'll go over results from the 12 worlds that I played through to show off how fast I found copper and iron and how much resources I got from the first ore vein I found. So stick around to the end if you're curious about those results. I loved everybody's comments, so much that I want to honor all the positive comments by putting them up on the screen. My heart and soul had so much energy after reading all of them, and somehow, regardless of how bad the internet gets with all that toxicity and negativity, it's always a big surprise when there are actual people who are respectful and kind to you. So a very sincere thank you to all of you. If I've missed any comments, my bad, but I got so many of them that they probably appeared after I finished making the vid. So it's time to address the fish allegations. Yes, I'm a fish. More specifically, I'm a clownfish. This is a skin that I picked from my Minecraft character. That's pretty much it. There's really not a backstory, sadly, but there is a lot of other characters that I have different skins for, but those are for another time. You can find them by watching the rest of my content. Also, just to clear up some other nonsense, I don't actually use Optifine. I legitimately thought people still used it. I technically have used it when I was unable to find a zoom mod that I liked for whatever version I was playing in, but that was a while ago. I use Zoomify for if I'm using a fabric mod loader, and OKZoomer for the Forge mod loader. And of course, a special shout out to the people who loved my voice so much they decided to praise it in the comments section. I hope you enjoy my voice in this video as much as the last one. Then there were the people who kept on insisting that iron is so easy to find. You could find it way faster than finding copper. And in the previous video, I said this type of argument is just false because copper obviously spawns higher up and gives way more than iron does. But I actually ran into a world or two where I, for some reason, just could not find any copper in the beginning. And the first thing I found was iron, and a decent amount of it. So while I do think that most of the time it is very easy to find copper ore, there are actually some times when a player will spawn into a world and it will be really tough to find copper. Maybe Mojang needs to work on the spawns a bit, because I swear, most of the playthroughs, I maybe found 1 to 3 iron ore by the time I found a full stack of copper. But sometimes it felt like I was playing a completely different game because I couldn't find copper anywhere near my spawn point. I would so love to spend this entire video replying to all of the comments that I've gotten, but if that were to happen, we'd be here for hours. So I want to reiterate some stuff I talked about in my last vid, and if there are any comments that pertain to this point, I will of course display them on the screen. And I would like to start off by saying that I don't think that in my last video I ever attacked anyone's character. If you go back and watch my previous video, I'm either judging a person's opinion on the matter or their actions. For example, their whining and belly aching. But if somehow I did miss that I actually did insult someone's character, then I do apologize. But I still stand by my points, of course. Aside from some, I'm assuming, joke comments, it has been brought to my attention that actually stone pickaxes are better because they are faster to get, mainly because getting stone just requires mining it, while copper ore has to be smelted. And while I want to agree with them and take back what I said, I think their problem lies with their concept of timing things out in Minecraft overall. Sure, you might think that you have to wait for the copper to smelt, and since it takes like 10 seconds for one thing to smelt in the furnace, you'd have a stone pickaxe, while the person who wants a copper one will have to wait at least 30 seconds. Let's not even look at the fact that a copper pickaxe will last longer and break blocks at a lot faster than stone, much closer to the speed of iron. The fact of the matter is that after the first copper pickaxe, you'll have a bunch of already smelted ingots that have come from the furnace. Smelting items doesn't require you to do an action. It can be done independent of the player, which mining cobblestone requires the player to do manually. So technically, after crafting the first copper pickaxe, the speed at which you'll have the resources ready to craft the next copper pickaxe will be identical to the stone one. One copper ore block drops 2 to 5 raw copper, so if you mined out a typical copper ore vein, like I've done in my worlds, you usually get around 20-ish ingots. You'll have enough in there for plenty of pickaxes, which will be faster and more durable. So stone still loses out to copper. And then there's the argument that the people I'm talking about complaining about copper not having any uses back in the day are different from the people complaining about the copper and armor tools recently. The community not being a monolith, or the possibility that even if they are complaining, they're right to do so because the copper tools and armor that we got didn't live up to the standards that the community actually wanted. This was really just so unbelievably difficult for me to wrap my head around, to be honest. The community isn't a monolith, of course, but so what? People are not just individual nodes, we are connected to each other. We talk to each other, inspire each other, influence each other. I can definitely address the community as a single entity, in the same way I can address a gang or a political group or a country as a single entity. Of course, when I do that, I don't think that it is all of the people of said group, or maybe not even the majority, but a significant loud portion of a group is still representative of the community in a big way. Especially when at the time copper was added, there was a very large uproar about how people loved it, but after a bit, it really soured. People started to see it more as a gimmick, with a limited roster of blocks that could be used, which of course later on would be remedied as they'd add more, but yes, the most popular opinion at the time was, why couldn't you make it into armor and tools? It is annoying that I couldn't predict the future. If I would have had the foresight to screenshot every message, knowing that 4 years after they added copper in 1.17, they would actually add copper armor and tools, and the community would be screaming and crying as much as they have, of course I would have done that. But sadly, I have to rely on my memories. Plus, come on, do you really expect us to believe that 0% of the people who are complaining about copper tools and armor now never thought positively about wanting Mojang to add them in the past? I find that to be very doubtful, given how toxic the Minecraft community can get, and given the fact that humans are well known for contradicting themselves. Even I've done it before. I'm not claiming to be perfect. As for the people who wanted that stuff but are whining and crying that copper armor and tools doesn't have some unique ability or quirk so that it can have some other use besides being a stepping stone inside of the game progression, I can definitely understand why you'd want that. Given the way that Mojang has been very creative over the years with their updates having quirks or unique abilities, I just don't really see it as something worth getting that angry over. Like, of course, I would be thrilled if it had some sort of like lightning attracting properties, or that you could use it with redstone somehow, or at the very least having the armor and tools be able to oxidize. I just feel like it's not that deep. I'm pretty sure Mojang just added it to allow copper to be used in the same way as the other ores can, because for some reason, when copper was initially introduced, they didn't allow that, which was strange and really messed up the continuity of the game. An ore that can't be made into armor and tools just didn't make any sense. I just think that a significant part of the community has sort of developed a bias towards Mojang as to what they want to see in the game. It's always about them, and they could care less about anyone else but themselves. And when they don't get their way, they kick and scream until someone like me comes along and just gives it to them straight. There's a difference between someone who gives constructive criticism and someone who just complains. Calling a feature useless or saying that it didn't need to be added, I can just use this other feature, isn't criticism. It's just being upset that they didn't add something only you would like. Obviously, there's a lot of constructive criticism out there as well, which I can definitely get behind, but being upset over a feature not being to your liking is really just not the way to go about addressing a feature that you think should be changed. Contrary to popular belief, out of the around 55 million daily active players, the average player of Minecraft isn't a child. They are a 24-year-old adult. This information comes directly from Helen Chang, the studio manager of Mojang Studios. So while online they might act like children, they are definitely adults. And instead of throwing a temper tantrum, they really just need to grow up. Who knows, maybe I'm just sucking up to Mojang too much, maybe I'm being too soft on them, or maybe I'm the one who's being too negative. negative, so instead of my entire video being just too negative for people to handle, I want to try and finish off the video with some comments about some of the features that Copper Tools and Armor could have if Mojang had decided to go that route. Which, who knows, maybe in a future update, they will give Copper Armor and Tools some unique feature. Some people had mentioned that it would be cool for Copper Armor and Tools to be oxidized, and as it oxidizes, it either gets stronger or weaker. Either starting out stronger than iron, but as you use it, it oxidizes and actually gets weaker, or starts out not as good as iron, but as it oxidizes, it gets stronger than iron, which I think is kind of interesting. I'm a little worried that either it will sort of make iron stuff not be important at all, as it would at some point lose in durability and speed if copper stuff was to slowly get better, and if it slowly gets worse, I think after a while of using it, you just throw it away before it breaks and make a new one, which seems kind of just like a waste of copper in my opinion. There was also talk about it having some sort of ability to conduct or charge lightning in a similar fashion to how the lightning rod works, or the idea of making you immune to lightning strikes if you're wearing the armor. Albeit it sounds like a cool idea, but I rarely use the lightning rod anyways, so I personally wouldn't use this feature, but it seems like a good idea nonetheless. A better idea, however, could be that after your copper stuff oxidizes and gets weaker, if it gets struck by lightning, it immediately gets rid of all the oxidization and brings it back to its former power. Also, adding a new ore like tin and mixing it with copper can create bronze, which would make it a viable option after iron and before diamond, since bronze is actually stronger. So talk of adding in the possibility of creating metal alloys was a cool idea that I liked. It does seem more complex, and maybe newer players would be kind of stumped at first, but as long as it was implemented so it didn't ruin the main game progression, I don't see how it could be a bad idea. Speaking of game progression, there were comments by people who thought that a lot of the game progression around armor and tools needs a big rework anyways, and this is what I think I've agreed with the most. I think Minecraft as a game created by Notch had a very different vision than what I think Mojang wants for it nowadays, and that makes game elements that have been here since the beginning clunky and out of touch with a more modern approach to Minecraft. Maybe this is something that Mojang is slowly changing. Examples of that are the changes to the hoe or shears, crafting recipes for the lead in the saddle, or the changing of the designs of the mob spawn eggs. So here are the results of my findings in the 12 worlds that I played. In 2 of the worlds, I didn't even find copper once. When I'm talking about amount, this means that the first time I found an ore, this amount was all of the raw resources that I got from the first ore vein of blocks. As you can tell, in the majority of the worlds, copper was found a lot faster than iron, and on average, I would get about 4 times the amount of resources from just the first ore vein I'd find, versus my first iron ore vein, which usually was nowhere near enough for me to craft a full suit of armor, so I usually would craft things like a shield or a bucket. So for all those people who still, for some unknown reason, believe that iron is so easy to find, it's not really about finding it, it's about finding enough of it, which copper completely blows it out of the water on that front. This isn't some sort of opinion, this is proof. Get used to it. All in all, my opinion about copper versus iron is still mostly the same. Not only is copper much more plentiful and easier to find, usually, the fact that you can now make armor and tools with it, whereas before you'd have to use iron for that, now frees up you having a lot more iron for more important things like shears, rails, blast furnace, buckets, cauldrons, flint and steel, hoppers, lodestones, compasses, pistons, shields, saddles, a stone cutter, and a smithing table. But with all that being said, this is the end of the video. If you like what you watched, click that like button, and if you want to see more, definitely subscribe. See you guys in the next video.